comes back to your original question, what can a business do? They really have to pay attention to those sorts of things. And then they have to step up their game from a customer service standpoint.
Welcome to Biz Help for You, the show that saves you the expensive learning curve by providing advice from industry experts in every facet of the entrepreneurial journey. Too many small businesses collapse. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, 20% fail within their first year, and less than 35% make it to their 10th anniversary. The goal of this podcast is to change that statistic. So if you're interested in learning more to be a successful entrepreneur, tune in today.
Let me tell you a little bit about my guest today. John David is a seasoned strategic communications and marketing expert with over 35 years of experience. He founded David PR Group, a boutique consulting firm known for helping businesses and executives navigate complex communication challenges, particularly under high-stress situations. John has built a strong reputation for shaping both personal and corporate brands, often ghostwriting for top executives and publishing articles in various reputable platforms. His book, How to Protect or Destroy Your Reputation Online from 2016 has solidified his status as an authority on reputation management. His expertise has been featured on major platforms such as The Today Show, PR Daily, and NPR. You can learn valuable strategies from John on how to effectively manage communication crises, protect your brand reputation, and how to properly engage with the media and stakeholders during challenging times. So, John, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Candy. I really appreciate it.
I'm glad that you're here. I think this is going to be a very interesting topic to discuss. But before I ask you any questions on the subject, I would love to find out just how did you get started in this industry to now you're considered an expert in the field?
I started off, I went to journalism school, and I studied public relations at the University of Florida. And then after that, I worked for a couple of different PR agencies. And I was a publicist for 20 years. I was a day-to-day publicist. I worked for agencies, started my own agency, and I was, hunting for clips. I went out, pitching stories to journalists all across the country, local, regional, national reporters, everything from the then local newspaper to, the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, cable TV, and I would book my clients. I booked my clients to do, shows on the networks and on CNN and things like that. And then the industry really started to shift, right? The media industry, and particularly when it came to like print media, which was an area that I was really strong in. And, all of a sudden, circulation started to fall. We had some economic issues going on. And, and also you get older, and the PR, being a publicist, a day-to-day publicist, it's a real grind, and so, I kind of, I was always looking for like, what am I going to transition to? And I started a blog back, it was probably about 10 or 15 years ago now. And I would write, for a long time, I didn't blog. I didn't write blog pieces because I wasn't really confident in myself that I really knew my stuff. But once I kind of really started to feel like, okay, I really think I understand these topics, I got more adventurous as a blogger, and my blog started to get some traction. And I started getting calls from people as the internet has always been like, changing things in the world. And I was getting calls from people who are having specific types of online issues. Like things would have like a story ran they didn't like, or this was published about them, it's not true. This, sometimes really bad things, like everything type stuff, mm-hmm. like mm-hmm. Bad stuff. And I didn't, and oftentimes I didn't know how to solve that problem, but I would always say, listen, let me see what I can figure out, and so I would start helping people with these types of problems. And, and oftentimes it would turn into like a blog post. It's like, okay, if this happens to you, here's what you can do. And so mm-hmm. eventually I had a point where I had like written all these different blog posts about online reputation issues. And one day I was like sitting there and I'm like looking at all, and I kind of like lined them all up, not like, not on a desk, but sort of like, virtually on my computer. I'm like going, this could be the table of contents for a book. Like this could mm-hmm. be a book. And so I started to write it, and I started to write a book, and I kind of cobbled everything together, and I had some themes I liked, and I had a lot of really good stories, like a lot of really interesting problems that happen to people, and what, how do you deal with them, and so I ended up with a manuscript, which was really, in retrospect, was like half a book. And then I found an editor to help me to kind of put it together, and I was going to publish it on myself on Amazon. Like, I found a guy who, like, that's what he did, and he said, this is really topical. You should try to get this published, traditionally. And I said, okay, well, how do you do that? And he started, and I took a crash course on how to publish, and I figured out how to reach out. I ended up getting a literary agent who ended up pitching my book, and I got a book deal, and my half book turned into a whole book, and it came out in 2016, and that really opened up a lot of doors for me, because online reputation issues are really like a crisis, and I'd also dealt with a lot of crazy PR crises in my career, like lots of stuff, like, Ponzi schemer stuff, bad actors, all kind, cyber stuff. And so I started speaking on this topic to promote my book. I spoke all over the country after my book came out, and I would talk about these online issues. And I just started to build a practice around that. I get calls from companies, and this is what's happening. Can you help me? Can you help us? And that's sort of how I ended up being a crisis communications guy. And,
Nice.
A lot of it has to do with, like, I guess the book and the background there, and also just the fact that I've seen a lot. I'm 56 years old. I've been in business for 30 plus years in the PR world. I've seen. I never say I've seen everything, because things are too crazy to say you've seen everything.
Right.
But I've seen so many different things that I and I understand people in business, and so I've been fortunate to have some great clients.
Well, it seems like in the olden days, before we really had online presence and social media and all of that, you could have people who were frustrated with you, and they might tell someone, a friend, family member, whatever, and you might have a little bit of an issue that you, of course, are hoping to solve. And if they, come to you, a lot of times people did used to come and just talk to you about it instead of, bashing online. But now a lot of people just go and say things online. So do you have any tips on, what can businesses do when something like that even occurs? First of all, how can they even find out if someone is saying something about them, so that they can try to approach
Sure.
them and solve the problem? But what do they do if there's all of these negative things online? How do they even manage that?
Sure. I mean, no, there's a whole, there's the way that it used to be, it's like, you go to a restaurant, or you go to a business, and you get bad service, and you're like, you think, oh, well, I'm going to write a letter to the president of the company, and so how do you do that? Well, you got to go home, and, whatever. When I was a kid, it was a typewriter, right? I got to get my typewriter out, or write a handwritten note, or I go, or maybe I go and I write an email, right? And I got to go find the president, find the president of this company, or the general manager, whoever it is. And I still, by the time I leave that restaurant or that business, I still have to be mad enough when I got home to, like, still want to do it, right? So you have all those, so you have the sort of natural. I drive home. I have the natural cooling off period. You have your spouse or your partner or your kid going, you really overreacted to that one, Dad. Mellow out. Now that's all gone. Now you can take out your phone while you're still at the table at the restaurant and write a review on Yelp. So the speed is just tremendously different. And so what businesses have to do is they have to pay attention to that stuff. They have to really be on top of it. And I think it's mainly it's forced businesses to just be more attentive to their customers, because they realize that that's something that can happen if you really, if something goes really wrong, and you're a business, you have to, you're smart to address it right away before that person goes and goes off on on Yelp or TripAdvisor or some site like that. But it's monitoring it, and it's also just being at the point of impact, being aware that this could happen to you. This person could go out, and I mean, listen, if you're a small mom and pop business, and you're not paying close attention to your online reviews, for example, and you've got you got 11 reviews on Yelp, and you're right now you're a 4-star company, and somebody comes along and gives you a 1-star review, and it gets published, now you're a 2-star company, and that's like kind of a direct impact on you. So you have to be to really monitor that stuff and pay close attention to it.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I do know, obviously, things happen and there are negative experiences and people, can share that. But I also know that sometimes people use that in a negative way. Like I remember hearing a restaurant owner once saying people would come in and say, hey, I want you to comp this, or I'm going to do a bad review. And there hadn't really been a negative experience, but they're, just wanting to take advantage of the fact that that opportunity exists,
Right.
so it's hard, to even fight
Right.
that because you can't afford to give everyone a free meal, right? So
No,
you don't
of course
have
not.
negative
Of course not.
publicity.
Yeah, no, it's like it's an online. I mean, listen, there's certainly some of that, and then listen, you can also if you're monitoring that, essentially you're being extorted, right? That's what you're saying. Somebody's extorting you for a free drink or a free salad or a free dessert or something like that, and the business can reply to that person in reply and say, listen, this person came in and we offered them X and they wanted Y and they're still mad, and we promise we want to make it right for them, but they're going to threaten us from the beginning. Then we're not going to. Then they left us no choice. And most people who read reviews, I think we sort of instinctively jump to the negative ones. Not saying everybody does that, but it's one thing if you read a review and it says, I got to this restaurant and the food was cold and it was, everything took too long and, and they whatever, and you read that review and you're going, oh no, like this place isn't any good. But then if the owner, replies, he was, what you're forgetting to write in your review is that you came in, 1 minute before we were going to close, and I told you the kitchen was already closed, and the only thing that I could serve you it was this, and now you're complaining, right? So if you temper it, you can help fix the issue. But it comes back to your original question, what can a business do? They really have to pay attention to those sorts of things, and then they have to step up their game from a customer service standpoint.
Mm-hmm. Right. So how do you determine like how severe this crisis is too, and what can you do like to resolve it? Because in a customer's mind, it may be, this high level thing, and to you, it may not be as much, but you need to meet them at where they are, right? In that level to kind of bring that down. So like, how does someone really kind of bring that down if they're in person, and if it's happened after the fact? Like, again, what can they do? You've talked about, maybe the way that you can comment on something too, but any ideas on how they can, deal with that communication crisis?
Yeah. Well, first thing is the crisis is relative, right? So that's the thing is that one, back to this sort of like, okay, your local restaurant, right? So if you go to your local Burger King or McDonald's or In-N-Out Burger or whatever it is, whatever place, right? Big organization, right? And all of a sudden you're in there, you're at the major fast food joint in town, and a mouse runs across the dining room, right? Now that's unfortunate for the fast casual restaurant chain, right? But the people who are there, and if it gets put in the local newspaper, that one location might like lose some business, right? Over a period of time. And that's unfortunate, and that's problematic for a McDonald's or Burger King, whatever. If you're a mom and pop restaurant and it's Friday or Saturday at 8:15 at night, and the place is packed and a mouse runs across the floor, that's an existential crisis. That could put you out of business. So everything's every crisis is a little bit different, and how you deal with it, it depends on who you are. What's McDonald's going to do? They're going to say, we've done all these things to make sure this doesn't happen again. The local restaurant's going to say the same thing, but are people going to believe it? And are the people who got freaked out by it, and are they ever going to come back? So it's all relative. That's the first thing. And then the other question is where your crisis, where is it being, where is the battle being struck, right? Is it on an online review site, or are you dealing with something that's, a major problem in a company? Like you have a sexual harassment issue, bubbles up regarding one of your executives. You have a succession problem or a succession issue. You have maybe there's some type of financial problem at a company. Maybe my accounting friend would call it a defalcation. Something gets stolen, right? Money gets stolen or whatever. Money's missing. Like all those things. Those are different, or another type, are also a crisis that a small business can face. And they should be prepared to at least, how do you deal with that? Because you may get a phone call from maybe an investor, or maybe a local newspaper reporter or TV reporter who says, oh, I heard this happened, and there's a lawsuit was filed against your CEO, or something happened. And so you have to be prepared to respond to those types of things as well, not just like the bad review. And those are all, again, all relative, right? I mean, the first rule of engagement when it comes to dealing with the media is that you answer the call. You don't necessarily have to go on the record immediately, but you can say, I'm willing to work with you. I'm not ready to go on the record right this second, but if you tell me what your questions are, maybe we can help. I can get you some answers. It's helpful to have a communications person. It's helpful to have a third-party communications person like me, because I can call them and have a straightforward conversation, because I really, most of the time when my clients call me and they say, this happened, this reporter's calling, I can call the reporter and say, how can I help you? I can't really confirm or deny or anything. I don't know enough right now, but I'm calling you back, and I want to help. What's your question? And I'm not an on-the-record spokesperson. So they can't quote me and say I said this or not said that, but I can say, I can try to triage what happened. And so it's all relative of like what your crisis situation is. And so there's rules of engagement when dealing with the media, quote unquote, the media. Sadly, those rules of engagement aren't always followed these days. There's there's folks like, I went to journalism school, and, I learned those rules of engagement, and I dealt with thousands of reporters who follow those rules of engagement. And then there's other folks who have, kind of just hung out a blog shingle and say whatever they want. So there's different ways of handling different situations.
So I would love for you to even touch on, it's one thing if as the owner, you're even there and can interact with that. But a lot of times, there are businesses that the employees are there, or, there's, got to be someone else who can interact with that customer and help solve the problem that arises. So can you maybe talk about having a system in place that can help them train someone else how to handle those situations, or what would they need to really have so that someone can deal with it when it comes up, and not like, oh, I'll have to call the boss and they'll have to get back to you, because that's not going to help solve the problem right away either, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure, like for me, if that's like the area that I feel like that falls to me that frequently, because there's like sort of what's your how much responsibility does an employee have, or how much leeway do they have to make a situation, make a customer happy, the examples that are always thrown around are hotels and what they'll do, and they'll upgrade you, or they'll give you an extra this or give you an extra that or whatever. The one thing when it comes to employees, though, when it comes to dealing with reputational issues, is there are like rules of engagement that your employees should understand. And it's simple as, I'm a big believer in having that every company should have a social media policy in place, which explains what the company expects of them from a social media standpoint. And the typical things that are associated with that are, one, that you don't speak for the company on social media. Don't put your company logo on your social media site. Don't jump in and defend what's happening. Certainly don't do that anonymously, with a pseudonym or whatever. And, but if you do see something online about the company, please let us know, And so you have like those types of rules of engagement when it comes to social media sites, so that employees don't, they don't, cause their own problems, and obviously you want your employees to know that you have certain standards of, communication. I always say, you want to tell your employees that, if they wouldn't say something out loud in the lunchroom to everybody, don't say it online, So be, kind of like offline manners, kind of translate to online manners. And then when it comes to like the traditional media, that every company should also have a media policy in place. So if a reporter does call, that they know what to do, they know who to call and what to say, and so that they don't, so that gets that call gets the attention it deserves, or maybe it doesn't deserve, but at least gets addressed. And then when it comes to like what you were talking about before, like individuals, when they're dealing with people, I mean that's really tricky. It's like the example you were describing earlier of somebody comes in and says, oh, I'm my soup is cold. I want a free filet mignon. Like you've got to have. That's for the customer service experts to weigh in, I think.
Okay. So then what would you say are the differences between, managing embarrassing crises versus existential crises for a company?
So I think the big thing is that you have to, it's where is it coming from, right? And so you have to be able to reach out. You want to address either one as soon as you possibly can. And sometimes things are just like, again, things happen. And one of the things that I've learned is that we live in a forgiving culture, that people we know that people make mistakes. I always say to my, I say to my kids, I make mistakes every day. I'm not afraid to admit it. I make mistakes every day. I'm not, am I proud of that stat? No, but it's like I make mistakes every day. People make mistakes. We're a forgiving culture. So the embarrassing thing happens. It's best to sort of own up to it and tell the truth and move on. The existential crisis, that's a whole other issue, because you then, if your business is on the line, and then you probably have legal issues, you have financial issues to deal with, you have obviously reputational issues to deal with. And so that's where you have to really kind of make sure you circle the wagons and get everybody, get all your people together and make a decision on how you're going to move forward and how you address whatever this problem is. And then take action as quickly as you can. But again, you're within the framework of, what your lawyers and advisors might say. It's also, I think, but it's important that, particularly today, and I think this comes back to sort of the heart of your question, is these problems can have an impact very quickly, and so it's important to have kind of someone has perspective on what this reputational impact is, like what the social media impact is, who's tracking this, who's seeing this sort of thing, and to be able to give advice on on how to handle the crisis. If you're getting attacked by a blogger, but they've got like 9 followers on Twitter, then you're less concerned about that. But if they have 500,000, then that's a much bigger issue. So I think when it comes to sort of the embarrassing thing, you just have to own up and deal with it, because it's not gonna kill your business. The existential crisis, I mean, there's companies right now, lots of big companies that are dealing with huge issues that could end up completely changing their business forever, and they have to look at all kinds of things. Like Boeing is the big one right now. I've been following the Boeing Corporation now for a couple of years, and going through all these. They've had these just setback after setback after setback, and there's no simple solution. There's no PR puffery that's going to fix that. That's going to be a top to bottom, business operations, finance, communications, everybody solution is the only way that company is going to, pull up out of this this dive that it's in.
Well, and you just mentioned, obviously, if someone only has a few followers versus, 500,000 followers, that's obviously a big difference. So how does a business maybe engage with those influencers who are putting out there that negative publicity, so that they can help resolve the issue?
I think engagement's absolutely critical, right? So I think that unless you're dealing with like a crazy person, I think it's always valuable to engage. And it's the same. The thing is, it's like, invite them to come to your establishment. Invite them to see if you can get on the phone and talk to them. Try to move that conversation offline if you can, and try to understand where they're coming from. I think that that type of engagement is really critical these days, because like so frequently now, I think that one of the reasons that the big reasons that companies have online problems, like have online review problems, is because their customers want to be heard, and there's no way for their customers to be heard. Right. So if you have a bad experience at a store, or dealing with let's say it's an online service of some kind, and it's something, whatever, it's simple, you got billed twice, whatever, and you can't reach anybody, and you can't get it, it's impossible, and like you send, and then oh, here, fill out this form, and I always call them the black hole. It's like, oh, you're gonna throw me into the black hole form, and just simple as, hey, is there a phone number you can call where you can talk to a human being, or at least where someone can call and leave a message and they'll get a call back? Because most of the time, I think a lot of people who go and go on the mass offensive online, they do it because they're not being heard, because they say, because they want to talk to the manager at the restaurant, and they're like, well, no, he's not here. Or you're on the phone with your mobile phone company, and they're off, you've got a huge problem, and you want to talk to somebody further up the food chain, and they won't let you. So what does that send you to? You decide, okay, I'm going straight to guns. I'm going to go, nuclear option. I'm going to go blow these people out of the water. And so I'm going to unload on Twitter. It's like, that's what I think can be prevented by companies that if they engage, Now, the flip side, as I was alluded to before, is, if somebody's just kind of nuts, then there's really no value in it. You just got to kind of roll with it. That's one lesson that I've learned and heard a lot about from my clients.
Just when you were talking too about being able to reach the companies, that's one thing I get frustrated with too, is sometimes some of the software we use or different things, like they don't even have a phone number. You have to just chat, or send a message and they'll respond later, or whatever it is too. And that part does get frustrating. Or if you go to a website and it's only a chat bot, right? And you enter your question and it never gives you the right answer, and then you can't get someone. That part does become really frustrating.
Yeah, no, you feel like you're in like a Saturday Night Live skit when you're trying to answer the questions. Yeah, no, I get it. I completely get it. And I think that's it's a lost art. I think that unfortunately too many companies don't, they don't give you that option. The funny thing is that a lot of people don't want to call. They just want to get their problem solved. Why can't I do this online? Why do I have to talk to somebody? I have that with my Gen Z kids. They're like, why, I just fix it online, Dad. I'm not going to call. So I don't want to talk to a person, like, okay, well, you'd be surprised.
So make it easy for us to solve it online. Right.
Yeah. But I think that a lot of companies fall down when they take that step, and it's like, the only way you can reach me is by doing this. And that's really not, it's very hard to, how can you really call yourself like that you're focused on your customers if your customers can't reach you the way they want to reach you?
Right.
But that's like a philosophical barstool conversation.
Well, I know this has been very informative, and I'm sure there's so much more we could talk about, but we are coming close to the end of the time we have together today. So I wanted to ask if you have an offer that you would like to share with our listeners, and if someone's interested in connecting with you, how should they contact you?
Well, I don't have an offer at the moment. Sorry about that. But my website's really the easiest way to reach me, davidpr.com. So it's pretty easy, davidpr.com. And my phone number is on there. I also have, you can also reach me via a little contact form and all that jazz. But yeah, I'm a lover of the phone call. So yeah, anytime. And one thing I always like to say is that, maybe this is sort of an offer, is that I'm always willing to talk to people who are, trying to figure out when something goes wrong, what do I do? Like I'm always open to that, if I can't help, maybe I can point you in the right direction on what to do. So I'm always open to talk to people, and, I don't like charge, like consultation fees or anything, for that first outreach. So,
perfect.
always open to help people out, because I'm ultimately I've been fascinated by dealing with these different situations, and everyone's a little bit different, and and sometimes listen, you've situations where people's livelihoods are at stake. It's and sometimes their liberties at stake. It's really it can be really rewarding to help fix those situations.
Perfect. Well, thank you. That is an offer that someone can reach out to you. So thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. And I appreciate you're just taking the time, to meet with me today and share your expertise after all those years of, doing this for other people and sharing that advice. And I'm sure that the listener is very thankful that you were here. So thanks for your time, John.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.
And to the listener, if you enjoyed today's topic and you want to hear additional information, you can find access to exclusive content in the show notes. Thank you for tuning in today. Would you please share this episode with those you know and leave a review on your favorite platform? And if you find our show informative, would you consider being a financial sponsor to help me continue my mission to educate business owners? A link is located in the episode description, and no amount is too small. I'd really appreciate your support. If you are interested in connecting with our guest and receiving the offer they had to share, a link to our resource page is in the show notes. Finally, if you have any bookkeeping or payroll needs, reach out to us at 310-534-5577 or contact@abandp.com. My team and I are eager to assist you. Until next time, have a great day.
Thank you for listening to Biz Help for You. Please join your host, Candy Messer, again next time. Have a terrific day.